We're bringing you a special Half of Us feature with Casey McPherson, frontman of Austin, Texas band Alpha Rev. In an intimate interview, Casey opens up about his story of personal tragedy and talks about how his music helps him cope with the overwhelming pain and loss.
You know, I lost both my brother and father to suicide. You're kind of never the same after something like that happens. You know, my dad was a CPA. He kind of rose up in the company and became president of the company, and so financially our stability got better and moved into my parents' dream home on a river and just had normal problems like every other family does, or abnormal problems like every other family does. But part of having a white picket fence, it's great to have a great, healthy family, but on one side you don't want to hear about problems.
I wanna be okay when I'm sitting here alone, not just thinking of the ways that I could have done it wrong.
And I remember as a child, all I knew is that my father took lithium. He took, medication for bipolar. One of the byproducts of some medications for bipolar disorder is outbursts of anger. My father he would get so angry that he would be shaking. I think that was a turning point. He was just frustrated and tired of suffering from the medication, so he had got off of it for probably about a year. My mother ended up needing to go to work, so he lost his ability to provide. He got off of his medication. I think kind of reality started really just closing in. And living in Phoenix, I remember getting a phone call from my mother saying that she'd found Dad. She'd found Dad in the apartment, and he had committed suicide. And I rolled around on the bed, just weeping because you don't really believe it. We were all in shock. My brother was 18 months younger than I was, and he was struggling with being angry at the world and drinking all the time and trying to start a career and enroll in college. So he had a lot of forces pulling on him. He had called my mom one night and had said, "Hey, I don't want to end up like Dad. I'm going to get a family, I'm going to get a job, we have a career, and kind of start all of this, and then I'll end up ending it all at some point." After that conversation she had called somebody the next day and said, "Hey, would you go check on Dylan?" Because he called and he was sounding pretty depressed, and the guy did, and nobody answered, and got the landlord to open the door, and that night he had taken his life.
When did I wake up? Or am I still dreaming? I won't fade out. I won't leave you behind.
Picking up pieces at that point was just, almost impossible. It made me, at that point, feel like I didn't really have a family anymore, that I was definitely alone now. And obviously a lot of thoughts at 3 or 4 in the morning of like, screw it, maybe tonight's the night that I pass. I thank God every day that I never took any action to the point that it worked. I kind of started seeking counseling. But a lot of it was me I want to release this pain, so how do I do it, In a lot of ways, I feel like that the spiritual connection that music gave me saved me. After my world was blown apart like that, for the first time, I learned how to be honest with music. I learned why I was made to do it. I learned how I could use it to help myself.
But I'm still bleeding.
it became all of a sudden something that was keeping my 2 feet on the ground.
We keep with us these fallen faiths.